The end of Yud Aleph on the base. We stopped yesterday where it says Ikeda Amri. 5 lines from the bottom. So this Gemara goes back to a Mishnah that it brought from Masechta Sanhedrin. If you look right after the Mishnah over here on Daf Yud Aleph on the base, so there's a Mishnah in Masechta Sanhedrin which brings a machlokes between Rav Yehuda and Rav Meir regarding an edus that when it comes to the hour, they're not saying the same hour. If you look at the end of the narrow line, so it's out over there one case where you have one edus that says that what he saw took place b'shalish shoyos in the day. Another one said it took place b'shtei shoyos in the day, the second hour from the morning or the third hour from the morning. So in that case, Rav Meir says edusan is kayemes. But if the difference between them is 2 hours, one said it took place in the third hour of the day, and the other one said it took place in the fifth hour of the day, then the edus is bottled. Rabbi Yehuda says even in such a case where one said it took place in the third hour from the day, and the other one said it took place in the fifth hour of the day, nevertheless their edus is kayam. So what we learned yesterday was one pshat of Abaye in this Mishnah. Now we're going to learn a second pshat of Abaye. The first pshat of Abaye in this Mishnah is that when the difference between the edus is just in 1 hour, we can actually say that the reason why the edus is accepted is because they're really speaking about the exact same time. So if one says the second hour and the other one said the third hour, so really what one meant it to say is the end of the second hour, and the other one meant to say the beginning of the third hour, which is really the same time. When the difference between them is one said the second hour and the other one said the fifth hour, or one said the third hour, that is, and the other one said the fifth hour, so the difference between them, it looks like it's 2 hours, but really the Gemara in Abaye's first pshat said that the difference between them could be only in a half hour. It happened in the middle, and each one is just a half hour off. And Rabbi Yehuda gives a leeway to accept the edus if it's a half hour off. That was the first pshat that the Gemara said according to Abaye. Now the Gemara brings a second pshat that Abaye said, and that the Gemara brings there according to Abaye. Ikedamri, 5 lines from the bottom. Ikedamri, a second pshat here is Amar Abaye keshetimtze loymar. If you analyze this deeply, you'll see L'divrei Rav Meir, according to Rav Meir, Adam toye mashahu. We say that we accept this edus because a person could make a bit of a mistake in the time that he saw something. According to Rabbi Yehuda, we accept the edus and we say that Adam toye sho mashu, that it's possible that it's a true edus. They saw what they said they saw, but the mistake that they make could be off an hour and a bit. And the Gemara explains. According to Rabbi Meir, a person makes a mistake just a bit. The incident that they're testifying about, when did it happen? Or it happened at the end of the second hour of the morning, or it happened at the beginning of the third hour from the morning. And one of them is off by just a minute or so. Right? So one is saying that it happened in the second hour. He meant to say that it happened at the end of the second hour, and it may have happened at the beginning of the third hour, or the other way around. So we give a leeway for the fact that they may have made a mistake, a mashahu. That's according to Rav Meir. According to Rabbi Yehuda, Adam toye sho mashahu. A person actually would make a mistake an hour and a bit. And the Gemara explains, the incident happened, as we said, oy b'soif shalosh, or it happened at the end of the third hour, oy b'tchilas chomish, or it happened at the beginning of the fifth hour. So it's off just about an hour or so, right? Because the person that said edus that it happened in the third hour, so when he's saying that it happened in the third hour, so if it happened b'soif shalosh, again, the Gemara here is saying that the story either happened in b'soif shalosh or b'tchilas chomish. So each one of them that's saying edus is going to be off an hour and a bit. Chad minayu, in the next page of the Gemara, v'chad minayu katoi sha umashahu, and one of them is making a mistake, an hour and a bit, because their edus is, when one says edus that it happened in the third hour, so he's off an hour. Either he went before the time that it happened, and the one that said it happened in the fifth hour is off also an hour from when it happened, an hour and a bit. Also, Rav Huna. Okay, so till here's the pshat of Abaye in this mission over here. Now Rav Huna went. Also Rav Huna, Berei de Rav Yehuda, we're on top of Yud Beis Amar Aleph. So Rav Huna Bereder Rav Yehuda went, Amral l'shmaitese kamei de Rava. He went and repeated this pshat of Abaye in front of Rava. Omar, so Rava said, how could we learn pshat in this Mishnah this way? Uma ilu daikinon bahani sadi. And if we would go and we would ask these Eidim, we would talk to them and interrogate them. The hay de kama shaloish betchilas shaloish, and we would discover that the one that said that it happened in the third hour of the day, what did he mean to say? Not that it happened in the end of the third hour. He meant to say that it happened in the beginning of the third hour. The hay de kama chomish, and the one that said that it happened in the fifth hour of the day, he didn't mean in the beginning of the fifth hour. He meant to say b'soif chomish, that it happened in the end of the fifth hour of the day. So their edus is off by 3 hours. V'havi edus mokreshes. In such a case, this edus is not consistent. They're contradicting each other in the timing of when it happened. V'loi katlinon. So it's an edus. This Mishnah here is talking about an edus that's being said in a case where they witnessed somebody killing someone. So it's chayiv misa. So in such a case where their edus is not consistent, so we couldn't give him a chayiv of misa. So over here, Abai is explaining, according to Rav Yehuda and Rav Meir, that when you have this edus that's inconsistent, we're going to come and assume and say that even though one is saying in the third hour and another one is saying in the fifth hour, he probably meant in the beginning of the third hour, or the end of the third hour, that is, and he meant at the beginning of the fifth hour, so therefore it's off only an hour, or maybe it's not even off anything, they meant at the same time, they're just 1 minute off. How could we make any of these assumptions? But Achmana Omar, the Torah says regarding an edus that is testifying on somebody that you want to give him a capital punishment of misa, v'shaftu eida, v'tzilu eida. The Bezdin has an obligation to judge and interrogate the edim as much as possible to save this person of being obligated to the chi of misa. So how could Abai say such a pshat here? So therefore Abai disagrees with this. Rava, that is, disagrees with this. Ela Marove, so therefore Rava says the pshat in this Mishnah that we quoted about the eidos is different. And the pshat is as follows. The divrei Rab Meir, according to Rab Meir, Adam toye shtei shois chasamashahu. A person may confuse the timing of when he sees something up to 2 hours, missing a little bit. The divrei Rab Yehuda, according to Rab Yehuda, Adam toye shaloi shois chasamashahu. A person can make a mistake in the timing up to 3 hours, missing a little bit. And the Gemara will explain this. Of course, the entire context of this Gemara is based on the idea that there was no clocks, and they're just looking at where the sun is in the sky to know what timing in the day it is. So therefore, a person makes a mistake, whether 2 hours or 3 hours. So the Gemara explains now over here how this relates back to what it said in this Mishnah. Maise. Again, l'divrei Rab Meir, according to Rab Meir, Adam toyish dei shois chasamashahu. When we say that according to Rab Meir, a person makes a mistake in the timing, 2 hours with minus a little bit. Ma'iseki have the incident that they saw happen. When did it happen? Oy b'tchila shtayim. It may have happened in the beginning of the second hour of the day. Oy b'soif shalish, or it happened at the end of the third hour in the day. The chad minayu. So therefore, one of the two edim here that is speaking. Katoi beis shois chasamashu is off 2 hours, missing a mashu. One of the Edim said that it happened in the second hour. One of the Edim said that it happened in the third hour. So the most that one of these Edim can be off is about 2 hours, missing a mashu. If it happened in the beginning of the second hour, and one Eid says that it happened at the end of the third hour, so he's off about 2 hours, just a drop less than that. So that's according to Rab Meir. So we allow for such a mistake of up to about 2 hours. The divrei Rabbi Yehuda, according to Rabbi Yehuda's opinion, Adam toye shalashah is chasamashu. A person may make a mistake in the timing up to about 3 hours. Ma'iseki have, if the incident took place, when did it happen? Oy b'tchilas shalish, it could have happened all the way at the beginning of the third hour. Oy b'soif chamish, or all the way at the end of the fifth hour. The chad minayu katoi shalashah is chasamashu. From the beginning of the third hour to the end of the fifth hour is just about 3 hours. Minus a little bit, and therefore that's the discrepancy that we allow for in the Eidos, that it's not consistent, and we still say that they saw the same incident and they're just making a mistake in the timing that they saw. They weren't aware of the timing, and we accept their Eidos. So according to Rava, we do have to interrogate the words of the Eidim, and we have to find out what they're speaking about. Not like Abaye said, that we assumed that maybe he was speaking about the beginning of the third hour or the end of the third hour. Even if we interrogate and it comes out that their edus is 2 hours off or 3 hours off, still, that's the amount of time that a person could not be clear in what he saw and the timing that he saw it. So now the Gemara has a question on this. The Gemara brings all this up over here to come back to the halacha by chametz, to understand the gzeira that Chazal made when the Isser of chametz starts an hour or two before chatzais. But first the Gemara is going to go through all the opinions, when you get to the pshat and the mistake that Edom could make, and then from there it'll come back to chametz as well. So, one more detail the Gemara focuses on over here to clarify pshat in this Mishnah of the Eidos. Tanan, we learned in another Mishnah, also in Sanhedrin, Hoyu Boitkin, Oison, Besheva, Chakiris. They would interrogate the Edom with 7 different questions. What were the 7? 7 basic questions that all Edom have to be asked. Be'eza Shavua. Which Shavua did it happen? Shavua does not mean week over here, but Shavua means every group of 7 years from between one Yovel and another is called a Shavua. So in which group of 7 years of the Yovel did it take place? Be'eza Shana, in which year did it happen? Be'eza Chaydish, which month? Be'kama b'Chaydish, which day in the month? Be'eza Yom, which day of the week? Be'eza Shah, which hour of the day? And Be'eza Mokim, and what location? Those are the 7 basic questions that you must ask every single Eidos. Tanya, and then we learned in another brayso, or actually Tanan, this is also a Mishnah. Ma ben chakirais lebedikais. What's the difference between these 7 basic questions of interrogations and then bedikais? There's also additional things, additional questions that they would ask to inspect their words, which is called bedikais. So, as Rashi here points out, bedikais would, for example, mean, if you look in Rashi says, Bedikas would mean Bekalim Shchayrim, Bekalim Levanim. What you saw happened. Was he wearing white clothing? Was he wearing dark clothing? And all kinds of questions about what happened. Simple questions about what they saw, details of what they actually saw. So, but the Gemara asks, the Mishnah that is asks, what's the difference between the 7 basic questions about the time and location that you ask, and then all the other details about the incident that you interrogate them? So the Mishnah answers, when it comes to the 7 basic questions, if one of them cannot give an answer about any of those questions, the Eidus is annulled. But any of the other details about the story that they saw, if you can't answer it, even if both of them say, we don't have a recollection of that detail of what they saw, the Eidus is still accepted. That's the Mishnah. Now on that, the question in the Gemara there in Sanhedrin that it asks on this is, what's the difference? Why when it comes to the 7 basic questions do they have to give a answer? And when it comes to bedikis, even if they don't know, is that their aid is still accepted? And Rashi explains, the reason why the Gemara is asking this is because both chakirais and bedikais are learned out from a pasuk, that when you interrogate an edus, you have v'darshu ashayftim heite v'hine eichek ahoid. The edim have to come and testify, and then you have to interrogate them. They're both learned out from a pasuk. So what difference does it make? Why by chakirais do we not accept an answer of any ideya? I don't know. And by bedikais, I do accept such an answer. So the Gemara explains, the reason is, answers the Gemara over there. Where am I holding?
Second, the big line.
Okay. Okay. And the Gemara there in Sanhedrin gives the answer. Chakirais, when it comes to the 7 basic questions, Omar echad mehem any ideya. If one of them is going to respond about any of these questions, I don't know. Edusam betela, the edus will be annulled, and the reason is the havila edus shei atiyachala hazima. Because now this becomes an edus that you could not make it into edom zaymimin. What's the halach of edom zaymimin? Edom zaymimin is when you have a second group of edus that comes along and says, how could you testify that so-and-so did such and such a thing in this location, at this and this time? Imanu ayisem b'makom plini. At this time, you were in a different location. So, any of these 7 questions, if they can't answer, if they're not going to say any ideya regarding these things, so then you're not going to be able to be mazen them based on these 7 things. The Torah teaches you that you have to ask these 7 questions, and each one of these 7 questions individually has to be a basis of being able to be mazem the edus. In other words, you will be able to be mazim the edus, even if you don't ask all 7 questions. If you'll ask only 3 of the questions, 5 of the questions, you will be able to be mazim the edus based on those 3 or 5 questions. But when the Torah says you have to ask all of these 7 questions, what the Torah is telling you is you have to have a basis to be mazim these witnesses based on these 7 possibilities. And therefore, if any of these 7 are not answered properly, so then you can't be mazim them. Bidika is, however, when it comes to the other questions that you ask about the details of what happened, what they saw, eidos shata yachal azimahi. That's something which the ability to be mazim the eidos doesn't apply to this, right? As Rashi here points out, this detail that I mentioned before. If you're going to ask them a question, were they wearing dark clothing or light clothing? Kelim levanim or kelim shchayrim? The concept of hazama doesn't exist in that inyan. The idea of hazama is that you weren't at that time and at that location, you weren't there. The chakira relates to time and location. So therefore over here the Torah says all 7 questions have to be asked and you have to have the basis to be mazim them based on all these 7 questions. But all the other details don't relate to the din of hazama. And therefore even if you say I don't know, the edus will be accepted. Okay, so the Gemara here basically is telling us this concept that the most important thing to make the edus kosher is that it should be edus shatiyachal hazima, that you should be able to be mazim them. You could then go and contradict them and be mevatel the edus. All the other details, it does not apply to edim zaymimin to be able to be mazim them, and therefore even if they say I don't know, it doesn't matter. But now says the Gemara, if you're going to say when it comes to the hour when they saw it, which is one of the chakiras that we ask. One of the questions we ask is, be'ezeh shah, at what time of the day it happens. So if you're going to say that's something that it doesn't have to be exact, it could be 2 hours off, it could be 3 hours off. So if so, hi chakiras, the ezeh shah, this question that you ask, in which hour of the day did it happen, nami edus shiyata yachal azimai. This is also a question that you cannot be mazim them based on this. The Amri, because the Edom will say, miti kateinon. If they say that it happened in 2 hours in the morning, so then if someone's going to come and say, 2 hours into the day, you were with us in another location. They'll say, I made a mistake. I meant really it happened 2 hours later, or 2 hours earlier, or 3 hours later, according to Rabbi Yehuda. So if so, you can't be mazim the Edom based on all 7 of these questions. And we're saying that you have to have the ability to be mazim them even based on what hour in the day it happened. So how can we allow for any mistake in the hour of the day? Answers the Gemara, you're right. The point here is the Yahavinon Lahu Kuluto Sayu. When it comes to being mazim the Eidos based on the hour, you're not going to be able to pin them down on the exact hour that it happened. But if they said that it happened within in the second hour of the morning, for example, within 2 hours before or 2 hours after, according to Rab Meir, you will be able to pin them down. You could be mazim them within the proximity of that time. Or according to Rabbi Yehuda, within 3 hours of that time, as the Gemara will spell out now. According to Rab Meir, Yahavinon Luhu, if you said it happened in 2 hours from the morning, so then we'll say you have a flexibility to say that you made a mistake, mitchilas shah rishayna, from the beginning, from the first hour of the day, at saif chomesh, until the end of the 5th hour in the day. So what the case that we're talking about over here is, going back to the case of the Mishnah, that 1/8 said that it happened 2 hours in the day, and another 8 said that it happened 3 hours in the day. So for the one that said that it happened 2 hours in the day, so we give him time 2 hours before. The one that said that it happened 3 hours in the day, we give him flexibility that he may have made a mistake even 2 hours after, 5 hours into the day. Now the Gemara explains, "B'din hu the nesef luhu may karat fei." The truth is, this A that said that it happened 2 hours into the day, what does he mean 2 hours into the day? He might mean right at the beginning of the 2nd hour in the day. So really, we would have to give him not only a flexibility to make a mistake that it happened at the 1st hour of the day, but really also 1 hour before that, because it has to be 2 hours of flexibility, even an hour which is still night. Ella, however, bein yamama lelelia loito enchi. In this case, though, we will not give him the flexibility to say that it happened 2 hours before the timing that he said, because a person doesn't make a mistake between day and night. So before Netzach Hama, when it's still dark outside, he wouldn't make such a mistake. So if he said that it happened in the beginning of the 2nd hour of the day, he only has 1 hour of flexibility before that at the beginning of the 1st hour of the day. All Rabbi Yehuda, according to Rabbi Yehuda, Yavinun Luhu, they had the Edom have a flexibility to say they made a mistake in an hour, in the hour that they said. How much time? 3 hours. Mitchilas Shah Rishayna Vatsoif Shishis. From the beginning of the first hour till the end of the 6th hour in the day. Now, what are we talking about over here? We're talking about the Eidos. One aid said that it happened 3 hours into the day. So we give him time before then, flexibility. And another aid said that it happened 5 hours into the day. So we give him flexibility to say 3 hours after. Now the Gemara will explain that we don't really give them the full 3 hours before and the full 3 hours after. Why not? We only give them from the first hour of the day till the end of the 6th hour of the day, until Chatzais. Ubedino, the nace of Lahu, may cut it fate. Really, we should give them more time to make a mistake 3 hours before they said. Ella, we don't give them the full flexibility of 3 hours before, as we said before, because a person doesn't make a mistake between night and day. Ubedino, the nace of Lekameitfe. And also, we should have really given them flexibility later than the time that they said, 3 hours, which is past Chatzais, because the 1-8 said that it happened 5 hours into the day, so flexibility from there, 3 hours would be 8 hours into the day, 2 hours after Chatzais. Ella, we don't give that flexibility. Shebehei chama b'mizrach. In the 5th hour of the day, the sun is still on the eastern part of the sky. Ubezayin, in the 7th hour of the day, chama b'mayrav. The sun starts going at the western part of the sky, so a person will not make that mistake. So therefore, we don't give them the full flexibility in this area. But the point is that the idea of hazama does apply to the hour in the day as well. The only thing is, you can't pin them down to the exact hour, but you could pin them down in the proximity of that time, whether 2 hours before and after, or 1 hour before and after, it's at the time of the morning, or 3 hours, according to Rabbi Yehuda. Okay, the conclusion of all of this is, we have various opinions over here. Abaya, and in Abaya itself there were 2 opinions, and then Rava, how to learn the machlekes of Rab Meir and Rabbi Yehuda when you have Eidim that are speaking about an hour and they're not exactly consistent. To what point do we allow flexibility that they're making a mistake and they really did see it together? Now, after all of this, the Gemara will apply this all back to our Mishnah. Tanan, what did we learn in our Mishnah? Rab Meir says, Oichlin kol hey. You could continue eating chametz even the 5th hour into the day. V'soifen betchilas vav. The Gzeira of Chazal is only 1 hour before the Isam and Atayra. When does the Isam and Atayra start? At the end of the 6th hour, at Chatzais. The Gzeira of Chazal is that a person might confuse that time with just 1 hour before. That was Rab Meir. Rabbi Yehuda said, Eichlen kol dalid, you eat the chametz only for the 4th hour. And then v'toilin kol hey, and then in the 5th hour you can't eat chametz anymore, but you still don't have to burn it. And v'serfin b'tchilas vav. And you burn your chametz at the beginning of the 6th hour, only 1 hour before the Isam and Atayra starts. So the Gemara now wants to understand, how is Rab Meir and Rabbi Yehuda's opinion consistent with what they say regarding the halachas of Eidos? Says the Gemara, Le Abaye, according to Abaye, Ali b'de Rab Meir, according to Rab Meir's opinion by the Eidos, the Omar. So in the first version of what Abaye said, how did Abaye understand Rab Meir? Ein adam toyev v'loy klum. A person, when he has an hour that he's testifying about, we don't accept any discrepancy between these words, between these eidos. The person doesn't make any mistake whatsoever. If so, why don't we apply the same thing by chametz? Nechel kulishis, a person should be allowed to eat chametz all the way to the end of the 6th hour, all the way up to chatzais, and we could rely on him that he won't make any mistake in the timing of the day. Lishna, according to the other opinion. Nami, the Omar, Odom Toyem Mashahu, the other opinion that said that Abaye understood Rab Meir, that a person could make a mistake with a little bit. The end of the 2nd hour to the beginning of the 3rd hour, person might make a mistake in a minute or so. So if so, let's apply the same thing over here. Neichel atzoiv shis, let a person be allowed to eat chametz till the end of the 6th hour, not the beginning of the 7th hour, not till the very last second, but a person should be allowed to eat chametz till a minute before the Isra begins. That's the question according to Rab Meir. So why does Rab Meir over here say that there's a gzeira of an hour? Now the way Abaye understood Rabbi Yehuda's opinion regarding Eidos, the Omar, Adam Toya Chatzisha. So the first version of what we said before is that Rabbi Yehuda allows for a mistake of a half hour. If so, apply that over here as well. Nechalat palgadishis. A person should be allowed to eat chametz until half an hour before the Issa begins, half hour into the 6th hour of the day. And then the second version of according to Abaye, in Rabbi Yehuda's opinion, the Amrit Adam Tayishon Mashahu, a person will make a mistake. An hour or so and a little bit more, Nechalat Seifei, we should allow a person to eat chametz until the end of the 5th hour. Why did Rabbi Yehuda say that from the beginning of the 5th hour, 2 hours before chatzos, you shouldn't eat chametz anymore? So this is the question. The point over here is the mistake that we allow by Eidos is not consistent to the mistake that we're allowing over here by chametz. Over here we're being much more machmer by chametz. Answers the Gemara, Amar Abaye, says Abaye, there's a simple difference. Eidos mesura lizrizim. When it comes to Eidos, that's something that a person that's coming to say Eidos, he's a Zoraz. Zoraz means he's more precise, he's more careful with the Eidos that he's saying. Especially in this Mishnah, Rashi says, what are we talking about? We're talking about a person that's saying Eidos, about seeing someone that is going to be Chayiv Misa. When you know you're walking into a Bezdin to testify about someone to be Chayiv Misa, you think 20 times before you're going to speak what you saw, when you saw it, did you actually see it then, did the other person see it with you? So therefore, we allow for much less of a mistake in the words that the person is saying. Chametz lakol maser. The Isser of Chametz, however, is for everybody. That's for every person has to keep the Isser of Chametz at the time of Chatzos. So for all people, there's much more room for a person to not realize the timing of the day on Erev Pesach, and therefore they made a gzeira of a longer time, both according to Rav Meir and according to Rav Yehuda. Okay, so this explains it according to Abaye. Now the Gemara goes to Rav's interpretation. Rav al-libed Rav Meir, Rav, the way he understood Rav Meir, the Omar, how did he understand Rav Meir's opinion by Eidos? Adam toyesh shtei shoyz chasamashu. By Eidos, we allow for a mistake up to almost 2 hours. So if so, mitchilas hey loy nechel, from the beginning of the 5th hour, according to Rav Meir, you shouldn't be allowed to eat chametz. And Rav Meir says it's only from the beginning of the 6th hour that you can't eat chametz. And says the Gemara, hey, in the 5th hour of the day, chama b'mizrach. The sun is still in the mizrach of the sky. The Zayin, in the 7th hour of the day, chama b'mayrav. The sun is on the mayrav side of the sky, and therefore a person won't make that much of a mistake. And therefore over here by chametz, we allow a person to eat the chametz until an hour before chatzos. Says the Gemara, but if you're saying that a person sees the difference in where the sun is in the sky, yihachi b'shis nami nechel. If so, in the 6th hour of the day, where the sun is still on the eastern part of the sky, you should still be allowed to eat chametz. Ravada Barava answers, no. Shis yoime bekarnase koi. In the 6th hour of the day, the sun is in a corner. That's the literal translation. And what this means is, in the 6th hour of the day, the sun is close enough to the middle of the sky, and a person doesn't exactly see the difference between chatzos and before chatzos. In the 5th hour of the day, it's still easier to see, and that's something that a person won't make a mistake. How about Rav's opinion according to Rabbi Yehuda? What did Rabbi Yehuda say according to Rav? The Amar Adam Toye Gimel Shoyz Chasamashu. A person makes a mistake in the Eidos up to 3 hours, about almost 3 hours. If so, mitchilas dalid loynechel. From the beginning of the 4th hour, you shouldn't be allowed to eat chametz. Answers the Gemara, no. Hey, in the 5th hour of the day, like we said before, in the 5th hour of the day, chama b'mizrach, the sun is on the mizrach of the sky. V'sheva, and the 7th hour of the day, chama b'mayrev, the sun is in the western part of the sky. And v'kol shekem dalet, definitely in the 4th hour from the morning, where you could see clearly that the sun is still in the morning, and the person knows it's not chatzos. Says the Gemara, ihachi behei nami nechel. If so, in the 5th hour of the day, a person should be allowed to eat chametz. What's Rabbi Yehuda's opinion? In the 5th hour of the day, that's the time when the Isser of eating chametz begins. Why does it start at that time? Answers the Gemara, Tigma, Abaya, Liba de Rava. Abaya answered according to Rava, Eidos Mesural is Rizim. So here he said the same point that we said before. Eidos is given over to Zrizim, so therefore we allow for less of a mistake. Chametz lakoil maser. Chametz is given over to everybody, so therefore we are machmer over here regarding chametz. That's one answer. But Rava himself said differently. The Rava says, Lav hainu taimed Rabbi Yehuda. That's not the reason for Rabbi Yehuda over here. Elo, rather, Rabbi Yehuda letaimei, Rabbi Yehuda follows his opinion. The Omar, Rabbi Yehuda says, Ein bir chometz elo sreifa. The only way to burn chametz is to burn the chametz. So this is a machlokes in the next perek we'll learn, where there's how do you get rid of your chametz? Rabbi Yehuda's opinion is the only way is to burn it. Another opinion is you don't have to burn the chametz. You could either throw it into the wind, you could throw it into the water, you could flush the chametz. You don't have to burn the chametz. Rabbi Yehuda says you have to burn the chametz, and if so, the Yovule Rabbanon Shah Achas, the Rabbanon gave this person an extra hour to be able to burn the chametz. Lilkut ba eitzin. So a person will know, I can't eat chametz anymore, and this will be a reminder in this hour to go gather wood to make a fire, to prepare his fire. So he has to start burning his chametz when? In the beginning of the 6th hour. But he needs time, in the beginning of the 5th hour, to remind him to start preparing his fire. So therefore they gave him that time. So Gemara asks on this, Ravina asked Rav a question on this. Rabbi Yehuda said, when is it that you have to actually burn your chametz? That's only if you're burning it not in the time of the beer. What does shaloi b'shas biyurei mean? Rashi says, if you're burning it before chatzais, before the time of the Isser begins. So then you have to burn your chametz. Aval b'shas biyurei, if you burn your chametz at chatzais, at the time when the Isser starts, so then, hashbasasim b'chol davar, you don't have to burn it. You can get rid of it in any way. You can throw it into the wind. You don't have to necessarily burn it. So what's the Gemara's question? Why do we have to give the person extra time in order to prepare wood for a fire, in order to burn his chametz? Let him wait until chatzais, and then by chatzais he'll be able to burn the chametz right then. So this is a interesting Gemara here, that the Gemara points out a difference in when you're burning the chametz. Whether you're burning it before chatzais or after chatzais. If you're burning it before chatzais, Rabbi Yehuda says you must burn it in a fire. And if you're getting rid of it after chatzais, it can be done in any way. It doesn't have to be dafka fire. What's the reason for the difference? The reason is, the Achrayim will explain, according to Rashi, because really, when you're getting rid of your chametz, what's the point? The point is just to get the chametz out of your house. Once the Isser began, after chatzais, so the main thing over here is just to get the chametz out of your house. So it doesn't make a difference how. I burn it, I throw it into the wind, I throw it into the water. The main thing is it's not in your house. Once the Issa began, you don't want to wait to find wood. Just get rid of it. Before the Issa begins, so here, there's a limud that we learn out from Neiser, that the way to get rid of your chametz is just like you get rid of Neiser. It's the leftovers of a carbon, that you get rid of it through burning it. The same thing you should also do when you get the chametz, that you should get rid of it through burning it. That's before the Zman. But once the Zman comes, you can get rid of it in any way.
That's only for bittul, right?
That's only for...
That's before bittul?
Yeah, we're talking over here where the person did not do bittul, correct. This is Rashi's pshat in the Gemara. However, Taisus over here disagrees with Rashi's pshat, and Taisus brings from Rabbeinu Tam the exact opposite. Rabbeinu Tam says that if you're getting rid of your chametz before the Zmana Isser, so then you can get rid of your chametz however you want. You don't have to burn it. Only if you're burning it after the Zmana Isser, then you have an obligation to burn it dafke through a fire. Huh? No. If you're burning it right away, as soon as the Zmana Isser comes, you're not waiting a moment. As Chatzais comes, you come and you burn it right away, so then you do it with a fire. Okay, so Taisus holds the exact opposite. Okay, let's go weiter into the Gemara. So the question of the Gemara is, why do you have to give him time to prepare, to be able to have wood for his fire, if he doesn't have to necessarily even burn it with a fire? V'shas biyuroi hashbasase b'chol davar. And says the Gemara, the reason over here is, and this is the conclusion of the Gemara, and this is the reason that's brought in Shulchan Aruch, the reason why there's 2 hours that you have to be makdim the Isser before the time that the Torah said the Isser applies. Gizeira mishom yayim ha'ma'unan. If it's not a cloudy day, if you can see the sun, so then a person will see that the sun is not in the middle of the sky and will know that it's not the Issa yet. But because it might be a cloudy day in Erev Pesach, so therefore Chachamim were geyser that you shouldn't burn, that you should start the Issa of Chametz, and you should burn the Chametz from 2 hours before. Fragt the Gemara, if so, if so, it should go back even to the 4th hour into the day. If it's a cloudy day, so a person can make a mistake not only 2 hours, you make a mistake even 3 hours before Chatzais. Says the Gemara, no. Omarav Pape, Dalid, Zman, Suda, Lakoil Hi. In the 4th hour of the day, that's a time where people have their meal. Because people eat then, so therefore people know that it's the 4th hour of the day and it's not chatzais. People won't make that mistake. In the 5th hour of the day, it's close to chatzais and people don't eat then, so on a cloudy day, a person can make this mistake. The what?
The Yehuda should be the opposite. Till this man is he should do whatever he wants. But Isra should only burn it. Makes more sense, no?
Why? Okay, 1 second. Okay, I hear what you're saying. I'll answer you soon. Let's see the Brais here now. Based on this thing that we just brought, Zman, that the 4th hour of the day is Zman Suda L'Koil, the Gemara here brings a Brais that talks about the time when people eat. Tana Rabbanan, we learned in a Brais. Shor Rishayna, the 1st hour of the day, right at the morning, by Netzachama. Who eats so early in the morning? And we're not talking over here about a person just taking a bite into his mouth, but a full meal. Who eats the full meal right in the 1st hour of the day? Michael Ludim. That's the time that the Ludim eat their food. Who are the Ludim? Ludim were cannibals. They, Rashi brings it in Masechta Shabbos, that there were people that ate in the 1st hour of the day. Shniya, the 2nd hour of the day, Michael Listim. So the thieves, they eat early in the morning. They don't eat as early as the Ludim because they're busy up late at night doing their work. So they eat the 2nd hour of the day, but they also eat pretty early, 2nd hour of the day. Shlishis, in the 3rd hour of the day, Michael Yarshin. It's a time when a person that inherited a lot of money and doesn't work for a living, so 3rd hour of the day, he eats already. Revius, in the 3rd hour of the day, Michael Poilim. People that have to work for a living and are more busy, so they eat in the 4th hour of the day, a meal. Chamishis, in the 5th hour of the day, Michael Talmidei Chachamim. That's when the Talmidei Chachamim eat. Shishis, in the 6th hour of the day, Michael Kolodam. That's when every person eats a proper full meal. So now the Gemara asks on this, but Rav Papa before said the opposite, or different. Rav Papa, Revius Zman Suda L'Koili. It's the 4th hour of the day that everybody eats. Over here it says that in the 4th hour of the day, it's only the people that are workers eat, and all people eat in the 6th hour of the day. So Gemara says, you're right, Ela Epoch, I have to switch the order of what it said in the Braise here. Revius Michael Kolodam. The 4th hour of the day is when all people eat. Chamishis Michael Payalim. In the 5th hour of the day, the people that are working and are busy eat later. And Shishis, the 6th hour of the day, Michael Talmidei Chachamim. That's when the Talmidei Chachamim eat. Mikan ve'elech, past this time, kizoyrik even lechemis. The food that you eat, if you're eating so late in the day, it's not healthy, it's not good for you. It's like you're throwing a rock into an empty barrel where it has no benefit. The eating so late in the day is not a good thing. Omar Abaye, says Abaye, lo yamaron elad lo yitam midi b'tzafra. When we say that a person that eats so late in the day, it's not healthy for him, that's only if he didn't taste anything in the morning. He didn't take a bite in the morning. You ate something in the morning, less lamba. Then it doesn't matter. In other words, this entire Braise is talking about a full meal. But a person ate something for breakfast, so then it doesn't matter even if you eat later on in the day. Okay, just to conclude this Inyan over here, another piece here in the Gemara. The Gemara goes back over here to the opinions of Rab Meir and Rab Yehuda regarding Eidos and regarding Chametz. Amar Rav Ashi, so Rav Ashi says, Kimachloikis be'Eidos. We had the argument of Rab Meir and Rab Yehuda regarding Eidos. Kach machloikis bechametz. So too we have their argument regarding chametz. In other words, just like Rab Meir and Rab Yehuda argued, and by Eidos, Rab Meir allows for less of a discrepancy between the Eidos than Rab Yehuda does. Similar regarding the confusion of time regarding chametz, Rab Meir allows for less of a time than Rab Yehuda allows. Says the Gemara Pshita, it's obvious. We already explained all this before. Hainu hachtam rina. This is everything that we already explained up here before. And says the Gemara, you're right, we already explained this, but Hok Kamashmalon, what Rav Ashi here was coming to say as a conclusion to the whole sugya, Shinuya de Shaninan Shinuyahu, the answers that we gave are accepted, V'loit Teimet Tanoihi. And don't think that the answers that we gave before was just in order to make it fit, but really it's not accepted. Sometimes the Gemara gives an answer, but it's not really accepted. The Gemara is just trying to make it fit. No, we accept these answers and don't think there's a machlokes Tanaim that presented Rab Meir, Rab Yehuda's opinion in one place one way and in another place another way. No, we agree this is the right answer. When we spoke before about the mistake that Eidos make in hours, that's only regarding if they're saying a difference between one aid and another aid in hours of the day. If one aid comes and says this incident happened nighttime, before the sun came up, and another aid says that it happened after the sun came up, so So then the Eidus is batal. Says the Gemara Pshita, of course. One is saying that it happened at night, and one is saying that it happened in the morning. Of course they're not consistent. Ella, what he meant to say is, Echad oime koydem netzachama. One said that it happened before Netz. Ve'echad oime b'seicha netzachama. And another one says that it happened at the time of Netz. Eidusum b'teila. The Eidus will be batal. Asks the Gemara, Hanami Pshita, that's also obvious. One is saying night, and one is saying as the sun begins to shine. So it's not consistent. How could you make such a mistake? Answers the Gemara, no. There's a chiddush here. Mao, the Taime, I would think to say, Tarvaya Chadam Milsa Kamri. They really both mean to say the same thing. And the one that says that it happened at the time of Netzachame, Bigiluya Havakoi, he was standing in a place where the shine of the sun was shining at him, and there was this shine of the sun that he saw, but really it wasn't yet Netz. It was the beginning of the sun coming up, but it was a moment before Netz, and therefore we might think that he really saw what happened before Netz, like the other eight. Kamash Malan, therefore it's telling you, no, if one says that it happened at Netzachama, it's not consistent with the other one that said that it happened before Netzachama, and the Eidus is not accepted.